said, we bring in our friend and one of the greatest big game pitchers of all time. I would say Boston, Philly, and Snakes legend, our friend Curt Schilling. Curt, you know Philly, man. But it lasts a long time, doesn't
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It stings. And Tone's 100% right. There's no way the Diamondbacks should have gone in there and beaten them twice. None. And I think when you're on the field, you tend to when you've been on the field, you tend to look at things different. Arizona beat them. Arizona beat them. They didn't beat themselves. Arizona beat them. Yeah. You know what? There were some things that happened that I pointed out on my show yesterday about the fact that bullpens now are about hard throwers and not pitchers anymore. And that matters. That makes a difference. And, for example, if you looked at the Corbin Carroll RBI single later in the game, and it kind of caught me off guard. If you looked at the defense of the Diamondbacks, it was an impact of the rule changes because they clearly had the second baseman shifting way in the hole at first base. And you couldn't have the shortstop. The shortstop would have caught that ball that Corbin Carroll hit and thrown him out of first base. It would have been a routine out. But the shift rules have changed. You can't sabermetrically defend a hitter with a pitcher who doesn't have command of a fastball. Right? So they're pitching Corbin Carroll to be a hard dead pull hitter. They've got their second baseman pulled over. They've got a hole up the middle. The only pitch you can't throw in that situation is a fastball away because he's a pull hitter. So he's not going to shoot that ball to left field. He's going to try and pull that ball, and he's going to hit that ball middle to the middle side part of the infield where they had no defenders. And the pitch wasn't supposed to be there, but when you have guys in the bullpen that are throwers, that's what happens when you try to, you have all these spray charts and all those spray charts are great when you have a guy on the mound who can throw a fastball in when you need it and a fastball away when you need it. These bullpen guys are not that anymore. They're just 98 guys. Phenomenal breaking stuff. But if you watch them, Gunkel his slider was insane. And he dominated that inning in a third he threw, but he didn't hit a fastball. He hit one fastball spot in 3 at-bats. And, and Harper just missed the pitch with 2 outs and 2 on. Just missed it. And he said it. He knew it. It's a ball probably 7 or 8 times out of 10. He makes a souvenir. And then Sewald, the last pitch of the game, Sewald tries to throw a backdoor slider and throws a ball that just creeped right to the middle of the plate that should have been hit in the 4th deck. Just got missed. But they allowed themselves to be in a position to make the mistakes they made and get away with it. And Arizona didn't, or Philadelphia didn't. And, it like I said, it's disappointing. I was really torn about how I wanted it to go 7 games. I wanted it to be kind of maybe a walk-off situation because of it was in Philly. But I didn't predict and had no idea that Arizona would come in and beat them twice in Philly. I just didn't think they could do it.
Curt, what I say this to everyone, and I've been doing this about 35 years now, sports talk, and I'll say it to you: baseball and winning a championship in baseball is the most difficult championship to win because you don't have to have a superstar player on your team to win it. You have to have really good starting pitching, a bullpen, and you've got to play phenomenal defense. And every year that plays out like it did for Kansas City a couple of years ago, it plays out every year for the Rays. It plays out now this year. Here's a team that walked backwards into the playoffs. They lost their last 4, the Diamondbacks. They
Right.
sneak in, kind of like the Marlins did a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And I was telling somebody the other day, Curt, I think if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head here, the last back-to-back World Series champion are the 75-76 Reds. I can't think.
Well, no, the late 90s. Remember the Yankees had 4 in a row, 3 in a row.
They were going National League.
Oh, National. Yeah.
75-76 Big Red Machine.
I don't know if that's true, but that's probably it's probably close. But I mean, and I agree. Did anybody have the Rangers coming back to beat the Astros?
Absolutely not.
But the Astros brought that on themselves. They hit the series MVP, and Maldonado came out and said, "Oh, they woke the Astros up." No. It woke Garcia up, and he ended up beating them, and that's their fault.
Absolutely. So, Curt, it comes down to, again, as you said, and to me, I never try. When somebody goes like this, boy, the Phillies, man, they got a ton of home run hitters and big hitters. I go like this. Well, if you're relying on that, man, you're going to get beat because in these playoffs, for some reason, Curt, don't they condense these pitching staffs?
You do not. Well, that's the thing, right? You have 13 pitchers. You don't have 13 pitchers in the playoffs. You have 3. Now it's even different. Now you have 2, maybe 3 starters, and you have an 8-man bullpen by committee. So you don't face the number 5 guy. You don't face the back end of the bullpen guy. You don't see those guys in the playoffs. Every at bat is against the premium pitcher in a high leverage situation, because every at bat is a high leverage situation in October. And that's the thing. I've always said the best teams win in October. And that doesn't mean, the best record or the best statistics. It's the teams that understand the minutia of winning a game in October. It's different. Sabermetrics and the rules that managers manage sabermetrics by do not work in October. They do not play. They never have, and they never will. The last team to hit their way to a title was the 2002 Anaheim Angels. If you remember that team, they just bombed San Francisco. You don't do that. You can't. You have to pitch, which is why I felt so good about the Phillies with Wheeler, who's, I think, creating his own October legend status. And Nolan, I thought, with Nolan backed up against free agency, he'll find a way. And I thought that was kind of the perfect opportunity for him to do that. And he didn't answer the bell. 7 innings and 3 runs in October is a loss. That's not a quality start. It's not a good start. Nothing. You come into October, and one of the things that I found to be very that I point out to people in April to September, when I'm pitching and I'm in the 9th inning and the leadoff, and I'm in a 1-run game in the 9th inning, those are high leverage pitches and high leverage at bats. All the hitters are approaching the at bat very differently in the 9th inning of a 1-run game. That's every single at bat in the postseason. And the pitcher has to elevate his game to a degree that before you do it, you don't know what it means. Zach Wheeler found it right away. He realized, hey, listen, I'm not giving up any command, but I'm throwing harder. Wow, that's awesome. And that was kind of how it hit me, was all of a sudden the ball's coming on my hand at 96, 97 as opposed to 93, 94. I'm not doing anything different. It's that energy. And Philadelphia was right for that, because the fans, literally, if you watch that game, I don't know that I saw a fan on his seat from like the 5th inning on. It's loud. It's absolutely, for me, it was motivating. My God, because those were my fans. That was my family. They took, I was theirs, they were mine. And that's a very incredible relationship for players. And I just did not see Arizona pitching their way to beating and shutting down the offense that they did the last 2 games. But Brandon Pfaadt was, and I think Lovello tried to manage them into losing a couple times. He couldn't wait to get Pfaadt out of the game. That was frustrating for me to watch. And I think that's going to end up burning them in the World Series.
Curt, why do catchers, it seems, make better managers when it comes to like look at Bochy.
Yep.
I mean, look at any guy that you go, Torrey, any of these guys.
Yep.
I mean, is it because they're defensive centric? They have a pulse, and like you said, not so much by the numbers, but like when you have a catcher behind a dish and you have Veritek behind there,
right,
and he knows Curt Schilling, manager comes rolling out, and you got Francona looking at you, and he goes, no, he still got it, man. I trust it. And you guys build that rapport up.
Right.
Then you move that to being a manager, and you kind of have that same innate ability to be able to look your pitcher in the face and go, I got you. Well, is that why these guys seemingly make better managers than
you got to remember
the other position guys?
You got to remember this. Pick catcher has the only player that has the whole game in front of them.
Yeah, crazy, right.
So there's nobody behind them. The entire game's in front of them, from the pitcher to the defense to everything.
Yep.
And the good catchers, the guys that make good managers, the Mike Matheny's or the Bruce Bochy's of the world, the Joe Torres of the world, they were more than just putting down signs for fastball. They were, hey, listen, this guy's cheating up on the plate. We got him played to the right side of the infield. Let's make sure we go with the fastball in this spot. They had multiple decisions, much like a quarterback, on every pitch. The good ones. The bad ones, and not bad ones, but guys that were offensive oriented. They're back there thinking, I'm going to throw a slider here, but God, I can't wait to get to the plate next inning, because I really think I can. Right. And so, and I argue being good at quarterback in the NFL is by far the hardest position in any sport anywhere ever, to be good, because people just don't understand the volume of decisions that you have to make in a split-second window. I marvel at that with the checkdowns and all the things that go with that. All of the things that a quarterback does great, like a Peyton Manning happened and Brady happened inside of a 2-second window.
Quick processing.
Exactly. And so, you could argue that, what I used to do with young pitchers was I would say, hey, listen, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to write down your pre-pitch thoughts. What goes through your head before you deliver a pitch? And they would write down 4 or 5 things. And I had a list that was old and crumpled and I'd done it a lot. And it was 46 things that I might contemplate before each pitch. And I was like, see, your list is where you are, and this list is where I am. And you have to bridge the gap over the next couple of years. You have to learn that these decisions I'm making should be part of your decision-making process. And I think that there's the same thing with quarterbacks, right? You talk about quarterbacks in the NFL, and you look at Jalen Hurts in college, and you look at the game. It's still fast, and SEC football is borderline NFL, but it's still slower. They don't, and you see, like a great example this year is CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Stroud has thrown 9 touchdowns and 1 pick.
Fantastic start.
He's been fantastic. And the thing everybody talks about is his ability to process, how quickly he's processed because the game moves so fast. And I think Young's going to get there. I think that they need to, I think one of Young's strengths, he's only got like 8 or 9 rushes this year. I mean, wasn't Young the guy that they said, when he gets forced out of the pocket, he can create and he's creative, and they haven't done that with him.
They need a better O-line around him too.
Right, they do, but I think he also needs to go back to that college mentality. When he gets flushed, he gets creative, and he's not doing that in the NFL. But again, the game is faster. In the big leagues, same thing. You're in A-ball and the big leagues, the time between you get the ball back from the catcher and the next pitch is the same. In A-ball, you're thinking about 2 different things, and you're also thinking about how you're going to go out after the game and drink with the guys. In the big leagues, you're sitting there processing, okay, Gwynn is 0 for 2 right now. He's hit 2 balls on the screws. He's going to, there's a runner on second. I know he's trying to pull the ball. It's 3-2. I need this. There's nobody out. I need this guy on second base. So I need him to hit a fly ball and blah, 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 and on and on and on. Those things are going through my head in a split second. And I've watched my video so much like a Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. So those are already processed. And when you look at these guys in the playoffs, there is no real veteran guy, especially for the Diamondbacks. You've got Gallen, who's a legit one. I don't know that he's figured out October yet, but I think he will. Kelly's a stud. I think Fott is probably going to be the best of them all because he's learning and he's been awesome. I knew Wheeler wasn't going to get beat. I thought having Wheeler in the game was a horrible overreaction in that situation because you burned through your bullpen, and if you had gone extra innings, then what? But I also think that's the state of the game these days. These guys are over managing the hell out of these teams because of the sabermetric driven decisions that they're making. And it cost Tampa Bay a World Series when he pulled Blake Snell after 7 innings, shutout innings in the World Series. And I have a feeling you're going to see the same. There's going to be a game, at least one in this World Series, where a manager is going to manage his team to a loss. And that might end up costing him.
Before I get to the World Series, what postseason defines Curt Schilling? Boston versus the Yankees and then into the series versus the Cardinals? Or was it with you and Randy in Arizona when you guys were co-MVPs? What, when your last breath on this earth, what defines Curt Schilling's greatest postseason
I would
feeling?
answer yes. I would answer yes to that question.
No, you can't run for mayor.
I know. I think all of it, but all of it does, right? I mean, one of the things that I learned in 1993, when you think about the Phillies and all the things that happened, it was predestined, right? We were supposed to win that World Series. If you think about 2001, the Yankees and 9/11, it was predestined. They should have won that World Series. Sports doesn't care about destiny. Sports cares about performance. And because the fans all think, these guys are the favorites, they're sentiment, that doesn't mean crap. The players have to forego that. And, we got asked in 01 about, do you feel kind of like guilty about, maybe possibly beating? I was like, what are you kidding me? What do you feel guilty? We're here to win a World Series. All the other stuff, the semantic, the World Series in 01 happened the way it was
Luis
supposed to.
Gonzalez hit that
Right,
hit, I
right.
went off of Rivera.
Right.
You gotta be kidding me.
I would tell you that the 01, the 6 starts in 01, the 48 innings I threw in 01 were the best I've ever pitched. I beat the Cardinals in game 1, 1-0, and then in the walk-off game, beat them 2-1. We walked them off. I threw 2 complete games. I never probably pitched better. I was more focused than I'd ever been in my life, and I thought, I threw against the Braves. I knew until Soriano took me deep in the 8th, I knew that there was no chance anybody could touch me in October, and I had that confidence in regular season starts, but in 01,
Who had a better postseason? You or Randy?
Oh, I did, but well, but also, if you remember, I pitched game 1, we won 1-0. Randy got bombed in game 2.
He did,
and we were tied 1-1. And Randy had come into the postseason with some questions. He didn't have a very good postseason career up to that point. He had thrown good games and stuff, but I think, and it's one thing that I think that made Randy Johnson and always had as great as he is. He was never going to be shown up by another guy ever. And if you look at his numbers after he got bombed by the Cardinals, he was a monster. And he comes into relief in game 7, 12 hours after he pitched 7 innings in game 6. But I had 6 starts. I threw 48 innings, and they were the 48 most dominant innings I've thrown in my life. And I was always proud of that because that gave me, I think, 306 innings for the year. And my 306 innings, and my best were the last 48. And that to me is what October does, is it elevates everything. There is no tired. In 04, I mean, 04 was, I think, in my mind, it was always, personally, it was about my relationship with God and what happened in that whole experience, and the feeling and experiencing true faith for the first time. And no, I wasn't praying to God for the Red Sox to beat the Yankees. I was praying for God for the strength to get out there and compete. Because in my mind, let me compete, and I'll let the chips fall where they fall if I can compete. But I need to be able to compete. Because in game 1, when
hurt?
Huh?
How much did it hurt?
Well, you saw game 1. Game 1, I was a shot horse. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't pitch off.
Was you just throwing with arm?
I was all I had. That was all I had, because the tendon was dislocating every time I threw a pitch, and it was dislocating in the middle of the pitch every time. And I had painkillers and all the things that go with that, but I couldn't make it go away. And it wasn't the pain as much as the distraction. I couldn't focus on the things I needed to focus on. And if you look in game 6, I get Jeter out to start the game, and the second pitch to A-Rod, I throw right under his chin, and it was a pitch, because before the pitch I said, okay, I'm not going to break tonight. I'm going to be able to pitch. So I need to make sure the Yankees know that I'm here. And so I throw that pitch. It goes to the backstop, and everybody's like, "Ooh!" And I was like, "All right, now I'm ready. I'm good. I'm good." And well, it went the way it went. Mark Bellhorn goes deep. Yeah,
one of the absolutely greatest. Well, then tell me this: how can guys like you and Dave Stewart have such a dominant postseason, and then you turn around and you look at a Clayton Kershaw and you just go like this, or even a Greg Maddux? If you look at his numbers, they're like 11 and 10.
Right. It's very simple.
To some
extent.
Very
simple. I've always told you this, Dan. October is about swing and miss pitching. Greg Maddux wasn't a swing and miss pitcher. Tom Glavine wasn't a swing and miss. Think about the Braves. Who was the one starter on the Braves staff in the 90s you were afraid of? Why? Smoltz was a strikeout guy.
Power.
You think about that 04 Red Sox team. That lineup, we had the 2003 batting champion was hitting 9th in that lineup.
Dude, between Manny and Big Poppy in the middle,
right,
that's maybe the best 3-4 hitter.
And the Yankees lineup was the same way. You don't get through those lineups by making them make contact. If they make contact, they make solid. You have to have swing and miss pitching in October, and that's why when you played the Braves, and again, this is all in context. Obviously, Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine, Hall of Famers, and
tremendous.
Right. But in October, nobody on the Phillies lineup was afraid of either one of those guys. Like, okay, we got them tonight. Good. We just need to outpitch because we're going to score. And Smoltz wasn't that way. You didn't know if you were going to score off John Smoltz because he elevated his game. And in October, he was a stud. And there are, I always say it, and you'll appreciate this having been on the field. Your butthole either puckers or loosens up in October in the playoffs. I was a guy who mine was loose, baby. This is what you play.
Wait a minute, no sphincter factor?
None. And there were guys, I played with guys, listen, Hall of Famers. I had a Hall of Famer tell me, why are you so like motivated in October, you can ruin everything you did for the whole season. I was like, what the hell is that? Like, this guy was afraid of people forgetting how good he was during the regular season because he threw bad in the postseason. And it blew me away. But those guys exist. And you knew from a pitching perspective, you knew the hitters that were up there and they were relaxed and they were
So
ready
you
to
don't
hit.
think people fear Clayton Kershaw?
In October, no. And I think he's a first ballot 100% Hall of Famer.
But Baumgartner, they do.
Right. Why?
He's he's power
right,
pitcher.
because they know he's gonna his butthole is relaxed. That it's just that it's that simple. And you know, there's no way to lose quicker in professional sports than to have fear of failure take over. Fear of failure motivated everybody.
Oh, sure.
Right. But it either paralyzed you or motivated you. And there were a lot of guys that paralyzed. You know, you look at NFL quarterbacks in the regular season, the postseason. You know, the game doesn't change. The snap counts don't change. The stakes of the game are the only thing that change. Same thing in baseball. It's 27 outs. It's 9 innings. There's no the game doesn't. This plate isn't 2 feet farther back or 2 feet farther. It's the exact same game. So if it's the exact same game, why do players respond and react so differently?
You know, Curt, that's such. I mean, look at this. If you succeed at the plate 27%, I'm making $25 million.
Yep.
In most worlds, in most businesses, if your success rate is 27%,
you're unemployed.
You're fired.
Right. 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 No, it's true.
So you're going to fail more in that sport.
But see, that's the thing, though. You
got to be good with that.
Hold on a second. There's failure and there's losing. They're two very different things. You can only fail something if you quit. You're going to lose every day of your life at something, an argument, a debate, and whatever. Baseball is a game predicated on coming back after a loss, whether it be in a bat, whether it be a hitter, why don't you just, after you give up a home run, you suddenly give up home run, home run, home? Well, because you have to reload and rejuice. Players that go in prolonged slumps are guys that, they let one at bat affect the next. Guys like Manny never went into prolonged slumps, or David, because at bat number 1 never affected at bat number 2, other than pitch selection or whatever. And Monday never carried over to Tuesday. Those are your Hall of Famers, because they understand, the NFL quarterback, the good ones understand everything happens in the 60 minutes. Once it's done, I take the things I've learned and apply them to next Sunday.
Yeah.
The other stuff, see ya, it's done. It doesn't have anything. The only way Monday affects Tuesday is if the athlete allows it to.
Curt, World Series, Rangers, Snakes, we got.
You know what? I didn't go in depth as much as I would like to, but I have the Rangers 4-2 or 4-3. I'd like to see a 7-game World Series. I just think the Rangers are hitting so well right now, and their lineup is so deep. They've got young guys, Carter and Jung, who aren't young hitters in the postseason. I mean, Carter had 5 at-bats before the playoffs? My God, and he looks like a seasoned pro. I'm ecstatic that Corbin Carroll's going to get a national stage, because people are going to see a 5'2" dwarf who is as good as any player in baseball and any player they've seen. And I think for Arizona to win, I think they have to win game 1. I think Gallen has to beat Eovaldi, and if they don't, I don't think there's any way. But I want to see a 7-game World Series, but I think the Rangers end up going 4-1, 4-2, or 4-3. Although I did see Max Scherzer setting himself up for a potential. He apparently said that he can pitch through the pain of a cut finger.
I didn't mean to chuckle. I apologize.
Well, why? You know what? It's like in football. The guys that play through pain, you don't know they're in pain. Somebody else has to tell you. I'm not going to go out there and say, "Oh, geez, look at my fingers are all bandaged up. If I do this, it'll be like, I'm a hero." It's like, come on, dude, just do your job.
Dude, you go out with a graph in your ankle, and this guy's talking about a finger.
It's hard. Yeah.
How many complete games did you have in the postseason that year that you threw those 38?
Well, the first 3 games of the postseason I threw were complete games.
Okay, so let me ask you this: that probably would lead the entire league in complete games this year in baseball, 3, right? Yeah. For the entire season.
Right. Well, it's a different game
today.
It's a different game, man. I don't know if there's a parallel in football, but the fact of the matter is the
Oh, the
money
game's
is
softer
so.
today because of the rules and
But
the way you
it
can't hit
you
people.
don't have minor leagues in football. You have college, right? And
Yeah.
in baseball, you have a minor league system where you create expectations. And these guys don't throw 120 pitches. I think I had somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or 40 complete games in the minor leagues. I had multiple seasons where I had right around 200 innings in the minor leagues. So when I got to the big leagues, pitching in the ninth inning wasn't a foreign experience. And you can't, I don't believe you can ever ask a baseball player to do something for the first time in the big leagues. I just think it's too hard. I think pitching in the eighth inning of a tight ball game is something I'd done in A ball and double A and triple A. So I wasn't like, oh my God, what now? It was okay. And then I learned on the job. But these guys are not pitching past the fifth or sixth in the minor leagues. It's stupid to expect them to be pitching into the eighth and ninth in the big leagues. It's not their fault. But you still have a couple guys, I think, that are, I'm not coming out of this game. I'm not coming out of this game. And I love that. I think if more pitchers had that mentality, we would have a different situation in many cases. But they're not raised that way anymore. And you can't blame the clubs are putting this kid Skeens last year, the number one pick, $9.5 million. They're going to get a return on that investment. That kid's going to get a big league pitch before his career is over, whether he's good enough or not. I think, obviously he's going to be a stud. But you can't have $9.5 million go by the wayside. That's like a first-round pick in the NFL signing that rookie contract and never playing it down. That's not going to happen. They're going to play the guy, even though they realize after the first 15 snaps, oh my God, this guy sucks. They're still going to try and get their money's worth out of that pick.
You
right?
pay him, you play him.
Yep.
I mean, that's pro sports there.
Yep.
You know what's funny? My friend Gary Templeton told me this about what makes certain organizations better than others. And I think the Rangers and maybe even the Astros to a point, Curt, fall in this line here that he said something interesting to me that in A-ball, in the Cardinal organization back in the day, what they would have is everything that you were taught in that organization in A-ball, when you got to double A, it was the same exact structure in the clubhouse. Then triple A, it was the same. So when you got to the big leagues and you got to the big club, nothing was not familiar to you. You were comforted with the fact that you knew what the process was. And the other organizations that don't have the success are ones that have different ways of doing things at each level. Is that true?
That's 100% true. And I always say this, look, organizations over 30-year period, right? Almost everything changes. The coaches change, the players change, the staff changes, the scouting changes, and all the only thing that doesn't change over a 30-year period is an ownership group, right? And you bleed from the top down, or you prosper from the top down. When you have Jonathan Kraft, who basically says, "Hey, Bill, the team's yours. You do what you got to do." Right? They run a certain way. The Cardinal way, the Oriole way was a big thing in the 70s and 80s. The Cardinals and the Orioles bring up big league ball players. These guys, not the bunt defenses, the situations in which you're going to run, blah, 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 blah. None of that's foreign. None of that's new. And because everything else is new. You're in a stadium with 35,000 people as opposed to being in Elmira, New York, where there's 16 and they're yelling and they've all paid good money. And, oh my God, Barry Bonds is at the plate. It's a different game. All those things are new, but the way the plate is still 60 feet, 6 inches. The batter's box is the same. The rubber's the same. The bases are the same. So you're playing the same game. It just elevates each level you get. Football doesn't have that. That is the enormous difference in baseball and football progression. Yeah, you have the Jalen Carters of the world who are literally at an NFL level playing at Georgia.
Amazing.
Like freaks. Right. But most guys step onto that practice field. On the practice field, they're going, oh my God, the game is like 100,000 times faster. That happens with baseball, but that's the only thing. The game speeds up. The game speeds up. The game speeds up. Everything else is the same.
I couldn't believe, Curt, when I got in my first game against the Bears, I went like this. I looked up, there's 10 plays. I went, shit. And I was like, before I realized it, I had 9 minuses. And I was like, holy, you have to let the game somehow slow down, because when you get to the professional ranks, it's so quick. Everything.
And that's what it is. That's what it
is.
You
must hyperventilate when you're a rookie on the mound.
Right. Well, but here's the thing. as professional athletes, every one of us, you play the sport to a certain level, and at every level, you're better than everybody else. At some point,
That's right.
unless you're Barry Bonds or Barry Sanders, at some point you get to a level where everybody's as good or better than you. And for us, that was the big leagues. That was the NFL.
Yeah.
And the game didn't happen too fast for me. It was just different. And I adjusted. I got my head kicked in my first call to the big leagues. But I remember the drive home that winter. I drove across the United States, and the whole time I was driving home, I was like, all right, I can do this. I'm just not ready, but I can do this. And that was, that was the way my father raised me. A lot of guys are like, oh my God, I failed. I suck. I'll never do it again. And professional sports beats the crap out of guys like that.
That's right, man. I mean, and hey, real quick, Bryce Harper, you a fan?
Love him. Love everything about him. I had a chance to meet him when he was young, incredibly respectful young man, plays the game hard as hell, takes responsibility, accepts the position he is on the team. And for the most part in October, the dude answers the bell. I mean, I think Arizona shut them down and made great pitches, but I'm a huge fan because this kid, since he was on Sports Illustrated at the age of like 7, he has been the chosen one, and the expectations have always been excessive, unfair, whatever, but he's met him. He's won an MVP. He's been in the league, it seems like 15 years. He's 32.
It's incredible.
Well, and you couldn't ask for a better player in Philadelphia. He loves the fans. The fans love him. And Philly fans, here's the problem with MLB and the Philly fan. Players in the big leagues think Philly fans are mean. Philly fans only mean if you suck. That's it. If you're good, they like you. If you play hard, they like you. If you're good and you don't play hard, they'll let you know. And as a player there, I love that because I didn't have to police other guys. The fans were going to do it, right? I mean, Jim Eisenreich had a good couple years in Philly. He's revered there because he played the game hard and he played the game right. And as when you're making 25, 35, 45 million dollars a year, there are no other expectations. Cheer me if I do. The Trey Turner, look at that whole thing around Trey Turner. How awesome was that? That was proof positive that fans are enormously impactful. And I say this one before we go, Dan, when I look back on my career and all the incredible moments, you asked me about the World Series, every one of my moments starts with the fans. Whether it's 55,000 people in New York who aren't sitting on their ass and they're quiet as hell because I shut them up, or it's 60,000 people in the vet standing on their feet when I'm walking into the mound for Game 5 of the World Series, shutting out Toronto in the top of the ninth. The fans are the origin of every memory I've ever had. They're part of every memory I've ever had because they make it, right? Otherwise, you think about when COVID was playing and the guys were playing in empty stadiums. That would have bothered me immensely because I want that energy. I want the ability to shut you up or make you scream. And that was what I loved about it.
You said something about Philly here. Jerome Brown was one of my dearest friends, and I played with him at the University of Miami, and obviously he played in Philly. And he said, "You know what, man? That vet, I've been in with the old lockers. That was terrible. It smelled cats everywhere, whatever you had, right? So, but there was just something about that place." He said, "Yeah, when that place started getting rocking, and that 700 level started getting rocking, it must have been awesome just for you,
my
Curt,
God,
to be on that mound." In that stadium, even though it was the old lady.
But think about it. From I can't even imagine playing football on that surface. I can't. I remember Flipper Anderson blowing both of his ACLs out on one
second base.
I remember. But I couldn't believe. But I worshiped that place. I loved it because 11,000 sounded like 45,000. And every night when I wasn't pitching, I got to see a fight in the 700 level. And it was never like a baseball brawl where people were holding each other back. It was people beating the hell out of each other, flying over seats and possibly flying off the upper deck. Philly fans are passionate. And if you don't like, and Boston fans are the same way.
Yeah,
the very same way. And when you look at it, it'll beat a guy down, it'll end a guy, it'll ruin a guy, or it'll make him do things he could never have dreamed of doing. And it did for me in both places.
Curt, tell people where they can find your fabulous show and how they can watch you. You're such a great listen.
Thank you. Curt Schilling Baseball Show is on Outkick.com. And anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, you can find it. Obviously, we'd like you to go to Outkick and find us, but I know that probably doesn't resonate well on this station, but yes, it's everywhere. It drops on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I did my Super World Series preview yesterday. It was about a 35-40 minute show. We just talked about everything that had happened and with the Phillies and all the things going on. And every week, Tuesday and Thursday, we're probably going to do a little more during the World Series, but that's where you get it.
Curt, it's an honor to be your friend, and I thank you so much for always finding time for me. And I'm just so thankful that
I love you to death. I love you to
one
death.
Another.
And I was very excited to see Tampa pull out the old school oranges this year.
They pulled out the creamsicles.
That is such a badass uniform. Such a badass uniform.
You know what? Leroy Solomon gave me this here, and this is the helmet when I was drafted, and that's the pennant when I walked in there when I was drafted.
Dude, that's old school right there. That pennant.
Yeah, no, that's totally that's totally old school there.
Yep.
Curt, thank you so much, my friend.
Take care, my friend. I love you.
Thank you, man. I love you too, Curt. Man, Curt Schilling, absolutely awesome. Hey, wait a minute, Tone. He's still there. Bring him back one more time. Curt, what'd you think of the Kelly Greens?
Big league. Oh, so let me just preface this, all right? I took a lot of crap for this when I was in Philly. I'm a born and raised Steeler fan. All right. I bleed black and gold. I always will. I grew up in the 70s, so I was always talking trash because my team was always winning. But the Kelly Greens, the Charger powder blues, and the Buccaneers creamsicle to me are legendary uniforms. And it's cool because the second you see them what they are. And it got because Philly fans took that as a reason to act like they were back in the 70s and beating the hell out of other fans and good things like that. So you got to love the Kelly Greens.
Absolutely. Curt, thank you, my friend.
Take care, buddy.
You got it. That is the legendary Curt Schilling, my good friend. I love that man. Hey, by the way, my good friends, our 40-year tradition with Hooters. Do me a favor. All you guys have to do from Rhode Island down through New Jersey, through King of Prussia, go to any one of the 7 locations. You can log online to northeasthooters.com to find that location. Or if you don't want to go in, go to hooterstogo.com. How about the 40-year traditions that they have, like buy 10 wings, get 10 boneless? How about this one, too? 1983, all you can eat. It's called Wing Wednesdays. That's right, 1983. That's the year the place was founded. Northeasthooters.com. That's northeasthooters.com. And when you go in, do me a favor, tell them Big Sil sent you.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.